It's straight talk with no chaser. It gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. No chaser, straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth, dying people hope. She talks, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.
Welcome to the Straight No Chaser Show on intellectualradio.com, an iHeart radio station. This is your host, Rhea Ray Harrison. I am so grateful to be with everyone this evening. To my left, I have one of the most fabulous guys in the life game as well.
Yes, I'm alive.
Mr. Patrick Brutus, thank you so much for being a guest tonight.
No, thanks, Rhea Ray, for inviting me to this wonderful talk show, and it's good to be back to talk to your listening on intellectualradio.com.
Tonight we have some real business to talk about. We are discussing the post-election for people that don't understand. Because people are like, we haven't finished elections yet. Yes, but on some levels we have.
Right. The primaries are ordered, and we have a lot to talk about.
So there's some things that I think people don't understand, because at one point I didn't understand. So I want us to get those done first. Number one, Chicago only has citywide 3 elected positions, which are mayor, treasurer, and clerk.
That's correct.
Everyone else is appointed or is a committee.
The aldermen are voted in their wards, and yes, to the bigger picture, the commissions and boards are appointed by the mayor. Right.
So then, for those that now have a better understanding of how this is, the mayor appoints all those other positions.
That's why it's critically important who we vote for when elections occur, because they have the appointment power, and that's where you see who makes decisions in the city in regards to civic and public life.
And for the city of Chicago, the aldermen all run at the same time. And so we don't have another automatic election until 2019, which is also for mayor.
Right. It's called the municipal. Yes. Everyone goes in at the same time. Absolutely.
So for those of you in your respective wards in Chicago, let's just go on and say this. You need to start putting some heat on your aldermen, because they're going to be there for another 3 years. And there are so many issues we need to have addressed. So since you're going to be there, you might as well work, because you're getting paid. I mean, that's just the truth of it. One of the most heated elections locally was for Cook County State's Attorney.
Yes.
And that was the Kim Foxx, Anita Alvarez, Donna Moore battle, which Kim Foxx won
by a landslide.
And again, for those who are not from Chicago but are possibly still familiar, the tipping point was the Laquan McDonald situation, the handling of his officer that killed him not being charged for 400 days, and appeared to only have been charged because they were releasing the video of the shooting.
Right, right.
And Anita Alvarez has done what I think should be done across the board now, which is requested that a special prosecutor handle this case instead of the Cook County State's Attorney.
Funny how that happened after the election, isn't it? But I'm so happy to, just like you, and I'm sure all of our viewing audience here today is very pleased with that recusal on her part to take herself out of the equation and ask the judge to appoint someone to come in and take over this case and prosecute it to its full extent of the law. And in the community, we want to see that happen without any kind of bias, because we know that Alvarez leans toward the police, and we want justice to be fair, equitable, and swift in this manner once this prosecution really begins in earnest.
What I'm hoping, because Kim Foxx does have a Republican challenger, for those of you who don't know, his name is Christopher Fancook. He was a state's attorney in Skokie for quite some time, and I think he's in private practice now. But let's say that, she wins. We're going to go on and say that.
Yes, I think Kim's going to make him famous come November.
Right. Right. If nothing else, but the guy that got beaten by Kim Foxx.
Right.
But I hope that once her administration gets in place, that they actually, and this is something that we need to, as a community, ask for. Anytime there is an officer involved shooting, request that the Cook County State's Attorney's Office recuse themselves automatically. Because in a working relationship, which they have with the police on a regular basis, because that's who comes to them with the evidence and to testify on behalf of the state 999,000 times out of 100,000, it's very hard to then turn around and prosecute you.
Well, I would agree with you in general, but I'm personally not so quick to affirm that, because I think that we need to see, evidence of a practice of bad behavior on the prosecutor's part to understand why we would need a call for a special prosecutor in certain high-level crime cases. We've already witnessed what Alvarez has done over the time that she's been in this position, and her, again, leaning toward the police. Very intimate relationship. A lot of cops have gone unpunished, and we've never seen prosecutions rise to this level of public scrutiny and community backlash and outcry for justice. And so she did the right thing finally and funnily. But I wouldn't necessarily hang that prosecutor, but generally, I think you're right. We need to have that kind of transparency to make sure that, we don't have any hiccups in the justice part of this process. But I wouldn't be so quick to hang it on the next one. We should wait and see exactly what her pattern of prosecution will be once she wins and once she takes office in January, and then we can determine that for ourselves.
I see what you're saying, but I guess I'm leaning towards the side of the appearance of impropriety. Let's just start out,
I got your
because I know that in my workings in court every day, there's certain officers, my judge services a particular district. So if I see you on a regular basis, and then God forbid you're one of those officers that I may have to prosecute later, it's a little harder. It's like prosecuting your cousin necessarily. But like some or dear friend, and that's a little more difficult. And yes, there are people that can do it, that can be that objective. But I would hazard a guess to say that most people, it would be difficult. So, but we will see, because this is not saying that Kim Foxx would not be objective. That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
It's just she's going to have enough fires to put out.
Oh yeah,
and I don't want anyone
pressure on her once she takes the position.
And I don't want anyone to burn her on some BS.
Yeah, I get it.
No cursing on the
I think we should take her at a word, though. I voted for her in the campaign. And we should take her at her word. She said she would be, able to prosecute bad cops, wherever injustice lies. I think she's going to do her job to root it out, and we had to take her at her word.
Yeah, but you know what? It's not her, though.
No, it's the office.
Right,
it's the office,
and
it's the community response to a lack of transparency.
And that's what I would, if it was her going and specifically prosecuting, I'd be all the way down. But when you're talking about, well, Patrick is the Cook County State's attorney, but Rhea is actually doing the prosecuting, I'm not feeling that as well. That's just the nature of the beast, though.
Right, that is.
So now we also have another interesting race that I know is a little the Democratic incumbent Mark Kirk, who is a Republican.
Right.
Tammy Napoleon Harris and Andrea Zopp to get the Democratic nomination. And she is best known for working for veterans, being a veteran herself, being a war hero, having lost, I think, both her legs.
Yeah. Both of her legs, right.
Now, here's the thing, because I do listen to some of my friends' political leanings, and their concern with Tammy Duckworth is she has no involvement that includes more station as U.S.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there are, wait a minute, let me be fair, there are two more people running. Chris Aguayo from the Veterans Party, Millen of the Libertarian Party. So there are actually 4 people in this race, but let's just be straight.
Yeah.
The main bulk of the votes are going to be
coming down to Mark versus Tammy.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's what it's going to be, because they're going to get the airtime, they're going to get the promotion time, they're going to get the commercial time, because they're going to have the most money. So for the Black community, looking at Tammy Duckworth, it's no longer that down slate like it used to be. You know, it used to go in and just, hit the Democratic button, so to speak, and in a lot of cases. Now there's some that are questioning, is she going to do anything for the Black community, especially because Mark Kirk played it smart, like we were talking about, when he was the first Republican to break from the party and interview the nominee for the Supreme Court.
So what's funny, Rhea, in this particular election, when we're considering voting for the Democrat, who is Tammy Duckworth in this race, as you stated, the public, the community, we seem to know a lot about her. Her history is well documented. Like you said, she lost both limbs. She fought in the Middle East, and she served the country. She went on to win. She's, I think, in her second or third term, and so we know all these things about her. But the complaint is that during the primary, she did not come out to the Black community. She did not debate Andrea Zopp or Napoleon Harris. She did not attend any community forums that were held on the South Side of Chicago. And now running statewide, what does she know about the urban agenda? And senators have a lot of power in a way to appropriate large sums of money through the various United States departments government resources to the state and serve the people. And her running statewide, she got over 1 million votes in the primary without running a campaign targeted Black voters.
Not
so,
at all.
Exactly. And so how will we respond? Will we vote because she's a Democrat? Will we vote because the narrative here is this is the Obama seat, we want it back? And will this forever be the Obama seat? Is another question that I asked everybody out there.
It might be for quite some time.
Right. So will we always be trying to win back this seat? And Mark Kirk is a Republican in his first term. His first 6 years, he won that back in 2008 and started serving in 2009. And so, it's war hero versus war hero. He's also served the military, or he's a Navy Reserve person right now. He's gone through some personal challenges. And so we have a very expensive race coming up right now. It's coming up, and there's going to be a lot of money spent on marketing and campaigning and messaging. And, will we now hear from our nominee? Will we now get a chance to hear from her? Because I think the knowledge should be equal. Well, she should know what we need, and we certainly already know about her.
As I told you, Mark Kirk has started to email me, and not not me personally, individually.
.com,
but
.com.
right. Hey, Rhea, what you doing, girl? But as far as his mass structure of emails, but he's starting to reach out, and this can be dangerous for Tammy Duckworth, for people that are already sitting on the fence,
right?
Because there was some concern about her not coming out in the prior fight with Zopp, and now if she does not make that move, the Black community again and the urban community again, there is not that guarantee like there used to be 20, 30 years ago that, well, she's a Democrat and we're just going to roll with that. So it is something to be said, especially when we're talking about the amount of power, like you said, that the U.S. Senate seat holds.
And it's interesting, too, because I believe in November, we're going to have a, higher than normal voter turnout. I'm hoping that we have great weather, but you're looking at the national presidential election as well, Trump versus Hillary, presumably. That will be the 2 finalists in the sweepstakes of the century.
Don't let Jerry hear you say that. Jerry's going to call you when you get off the show. Oh, my goodness.
So we could expect a large large turnout there, right? People will be excited and energized to either vote for Trump or against Hillary, or vote for Hillary or vote against Trump. And so that may have a trickle down effect. So my original question was going to be, can Tammy win without a higher than 50% turnout from Black voters who would normally otherwise vote Democratic? Are some Black voters also going to be pulling Republican tickets because they want to maybe vote for Trump? I mean, I think there's a lot of interest both ways. And so Tammy has to consider that, you know, very strategically as she moves into the summer and early fall, as she campaigns, and she needs to come out to the Black community to express her platform, tell us what she's going to do for us, in addition to what she's going to do for the entire state. But certainly, you know, the African American community has unique challenges, as
does the urban community.
Well, absolutely, absolutely, and this is, I'm sure, been discussed on this show a number of different times. You know, we have specific needs that are unique to our community, and we want someone that's going to represent us also.
Well, you brought up the presidential election, and this is also something that is very, very different now, because you know what?
It just makes you smile, doesn't it?
We're going to take a brief break, and when we come back, how did Donald Trump hijack, as they say,
let's dissect that, right?
The Republican Party? We'll be right back on the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com.
Glamconference.net. Don't miss a day of inspiration at the 2016 Glam Conference, Saturday, June 11th at the Skokie Banquet and Conference Center. Hear from keynote speaker Karen Jordan of ABC7 and a host of other coaches and successful businesswomen. Calling all Chicagoland women and girls to register at glamconference.net. Don't miss a day of inspiration at the 2016 Glam Conference, Saturday, June 11th at the Skokie Banquet and Conference Center. Hear from keynote speaker Karen Jordan of ABC7 and a host of other coaches and successful businesswomen. Adult tickets are $85 and just $49 for teen girls aged 14 to 18. Your teens will learn about college prep and social media etiquette while you enjoy the Glam Walk fashion show and the men's panel discuss dating, relationships, and more. Saturday, June 11th, don't miss Glam, the Goals, Life, and Money Conference. Limited space available. Be glamorous and register today at glamconference.net.
And we're back on the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com, an iHeart radio station. I'm with my guest, Patrick Brutus, and we are chomping at the bit to discuss this
a whole lot of stuff.
presidential situation. because what, 10 months ago, 11
Mhm.
months ago,
Mhm.
here comes Donald Trump, out of the gates, talking smack, talking crazy, and pulling in a lot of support. And I think the Republican conservative hierarchy, the
Right.
Bushes and the such and suches and the such and suches, really thought he was a joke and really underestimated his appeal. So when it came down to how many people did they have at one point, it looked like they had like 20 people
Yeah,
running for
they had
president.
17 total candidates, and he's eviscerated all of them.
I
He's
mean,
the last
just
man standing.
gutted them. I mean,
Yeah.
just like a hog slaughter. And now the coming to the convention,
It's
Lindsey
become this whole thing
Graham.
about establishment versus the populist, appeal that he has, and so, it's fascinating. It is just extremely fascinating. I can't get enough of it. But if you look at it, and you analyze what's going on right now today with this election as a beacon of light, a highlight example. I think the people in the country, and this is all races, this is primarily middle America, but at the extreme, folks who are also following this as well in this manner, that they also are equally frustrated, such as he's expressed his frustration about that winning being the country that it used to be. And so when he says, I want to make America great again, and he wants to return back to a time where America was the world leader and we were the financial, economic power, and our art, this is, to me, reminiscent of people who were from that generation of the 40s and 50s that want to go back to a time called Pleasantville. And so today, because today we're in a different time. It's 70, 60, 70 years later. We're in a different kind of society. But nevertheless, you have a large portion of those people, middle America, who have been, adversely impacted by deals that the government has made. And so I look at this as the establishment versus the people, and the establishment trying to continue to have a firm hold on what policies get made, what kind of international, presentation the country has, and certainly who represents this nation, whether it be in Congress or in the White House. And so, some have said, the New World Order and those kinds of things. But I think that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about those people like the Bushes. They're globalists, right? And so they don't want a guy like Trump coming in here and messing, all their stuff up, right? Because I think this is a bigger thing than just America.
Well, when we look at it, because like you said, there is a split now in the Republican Party. In a show yesterday, I think it was Meet the Press,
Mhm.
and they talked about how when you've had splits like this in the past, you weren't able to win
Right.
because your party was too divided, Democrat as well as Republican. Both sides had done it.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're looking at Paul Ryan saying, "Well, give me a minute. Give
Yep.
me a minute. Let me
Right.
let me pull myself together.
To destroy the whole Republican Party.
Right. Give me a minute. We're gonna do. You have Mitt Romney, who is you
Right.
know
To a candidate for the Republican Party.
right, and he's being actually
Bernie has talked about a whole bunch of, quite frankly, cared or didn't want to talk about yet.
into
Yes.
certain conversations. And I can't call her name, but her name is Carol, and I can't remember her last name.
Mhm.
She is a very well-known Black news,
Former ABC News, right?
and she's now teaching. And
Mhm.
I saw her a few weeks ago. She was saying how she's on a collegiate level, and she's a big Hillary supporter. Ladies that she teaches like are strictly Bernie supporters. And so, yes, the Democratic Party is going to be in a not as obviously harsh because Trump is a bigger personality than you have to just
in life.
right.
Right.
But they're in a similar walk in that there is no middle ground for what Bernie and Hillary have both stood for.
Well, I mean, if you look at this campaign very closely, it's going to come down to will the Bernie supporters actually support Hillary? Because there's been a lot of conversation amongst Bernie supporters today that they either will sit it out, reluctantly pull the trigger for the Democratic nominee, or switch to Trump, because some of Bernie's platform started to mirror Trump's
Some of
platform,
Trump's.
right, in regards to NAFTA and trade and things like that. But I think for Black voters, the important thing for us to analyze really would be Hillary's past support of the 1994 crime bill, which, as you know, has had a 20-year devastating impact on the Black community in regards to the number of arrests, the drug arrests, and the incarcerations that we've had over the years that have really wrecked a generation of Black men, destabilizing homes, creating a generation of Black women who have had to raise families on their own. And we know that cycle has had a porous effect on, and just looking at that locally has had a very porous effect on our communities, our schools, our housing situation, our economics, everything. So, I think if you look at that and Bernie's acceptance, remember when he got blasted in Seattle and those Black Lives Matter girls came to him, they rushed the stage, they boxed him out, they took over the mic program. Since that moment, he's actually talked to those people, listened, worked with them, adopted, some semblance of an urban agenda that has given voice to these young people.
He's given them some consideration and some respect.
Absolutely. Out of the Democratic candidate that has actually been talking about an urban agenda that will end this country. And so I think it's going to be very hard for a lot of Black folks to, vote Democratic just, without getting an agenda on the platform that
the Black population that is supporting Hillary is the 50 and older Black population.
Perhaps.
But there are a lot of us,
millennials and young generation X and Y people,
right,
are not so. It's not automatic.
No.
Hillary has to work to earn my vote.
She has to work to earn almost every vote that she has. Like I said, you have the older ones, especially in the South. I was watching how they were out there, on stage with her and all that. And that's cool because you have the right to feel how you feel. But she was not prepared for the state by state slugfest that she was in. And some states she lost to Bernie. They really thought that, right, similar to what the Republicans thought about Trump, that right, that Bernie was going to fade out.
They looked at the polls and Bernie was down like 60, 70, said this is going to be easy.
Right, we're in.
But she needed someone to run against her so that she could actually raise them. Needed to have, a foil to fundraise. Otherwise, the money probably wouldn't have been there until November.
But then the unanticipated side effect of that was I have to answer some questions I didn't expect to talk about.
Absolutely.
And now she's literally, it reminds me of one of those old Muhammad Ali fights where you just you're on the ropes like this sometimes, just trying to hold on.
It's an unintended result. And Rhea, and I hope, the next segment we'll get a chance to talk about unintended results due to consequences that were raised, especially locally, when I look at the young leaders that were born out of the Laquan McDonald, the Save CSU crises, our bad economics here in Chicago, the number of shootings, that whole situation during an election cycle in Chicago and in Cook County has given birth to a whole new generation of young leaders. I like to call them young warriors. And they now are the ones who are unafraid to assume a position of leadership in our community and have spoken very loudly. And I think a lot of people are listening.
When we come back, we're going to have our money moment with H. Cortez. And then we're going to talk not just about unintended consequences, but we're going to talk about the big, gigantic, not invisible elephant in the room, which is the state of Illinois still not having a budget. We'll be right back on the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com.
the one and only financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's Money Moment. Tonight, we're going to talk about the comfort and security of the comfort zone, right? And why that could be holding you back from reaching your dreams, whether those dreams are financial, whether they're career related, whether they're business related, it doesn't matter. Your comfort zone could be a major hindrance for you hitting your dreams and goals. And why would I say something like that? Because if you think about it, no matter how secure, no matter how safe, no matter how comfortable we are in the comfort zone, I want you to think about this one aspect of it that rarely gets thought about by most people. Nothing ever grows there. I'm going to say it again. Doesn't matter the safety and security of your comfort zone. What you have to remember is nothing ever grows there. And we know that you're not going from one level to another without growth. So whether you're not comfortable or you're too comfortable on your job, you're not going to get that promotion, because guess where that promotion lies? Greetings, Ray and my straight no chaser family. It is your main man, H. Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor to the working class, coming to you with tonight's Money Moment. Tonight, we're going to talk about the comfort and security of the comfort zone, right? And why that could be holding you back from reaching your dreams, whether those dreams are financial, whether they're career related, whether they're business related, it doesn't matter. Your comfort zone could be a major hindrance for you hitting your dreams and goals. And why would I say something like that? Because if you think about it, no matter how secure, no matter how safe, no matter how comfortable we are in the comfort zone, I want you to think about this one aspect of it that rarely gets thought about by most people. Nothing ever grows there. I'm going to say it again. Doesn't matter the safety and security of your comfort zone. What you have to remember is nothing ever grows there. And we know that you're not going from one level to another without growth. So whether you're not comfortable or you're too comfortable on your job, you're not going to get that promotion, because guess where that promotion lies? Outside of your comfort zone. And you not only have to step outside of your comfort zone, you actually have to live outside of your comfort zone to have the success that you want to have. So when you start thinking about career advancement and you start feeling uncomfortable about what it's going to take, that's the feeling you should be running to and not running from. When you start thinking about saving money, for instance, and you start to feel uncomfortable, that's the feeling that you should be running to instead of running away from. When you start thinking about making investments and you start feeling uncomfortable, well, understand that you have to move outside of your comfort zone in order to have the success that you want to have. You start thinking about entrepreneurship and you start feeling uncomfortable. That's the feeling that you have to run to and not away from, because everything that we want in life, especially when it comes to success, be it career, financial, business, lies on the outside of our comfort zone. So you have to learn how to be or how to live in discomfort so that you can explore the goals and dreams that you want to have. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys tonight. I'm H. Cortez, financial health mentor to the working class. You're checking out the Straight No Chaser show with the lovely Rhea Ray as your host. If you know about me and what I do, check out my fan page, Financial Health Mentor, and my YouTube channel by the same name. And until I talk to you guys next week, get your money up, because you can do it.
And that was our money moment from H. Cortez. And we are back to our conversation on the Straight No Chaser show with Patrick Brutus. Let's talk about unintended consequences, because there are few that people actually don't even recognize. Mm-hmm. When we're dealing with these elections, there are unintended consequences during the process as well as after the people get in office. And here's where some of our brothers and sisters of the struggle are going to get angry. But let's talk about Barack Obama's presidency. Because in looking at the 8 years, and I've had this debate with my girlfriend off and on for a few years, because we're very sensitive about criticizing him because he is the first black president and everyone else has just torn him to shreds.
Did she cut you?
She didn't cut me, but Candy Hill that sits next to me at work, and is my work friend, tried to cut me a couple of times, tried to jump over the cubicle
Y'all got to
partition.
be careful when y'all talking about the president. Y'all got to step back
Yes.
and then write a letter to make a plane and throw it over the edge.
Right, but and we used to have really big battles at work, and
Yeah.
I tell people, if you're intelligent and you're sincere, I don't know why we can't talk about politics, even if we don't agree. So we've had those conversations at work. My question has been, for his whole second term, so what has he done specifically for Black people, considering there have been other quote unquote special interest groups that have had things done specifically for them? Yes, we've benefited from Obamacare and other things just like everyone else, but what has he specifically done for the African American community? And I have not been given an answer.
Right, and you won't get an answer, Rhea, unfortunately. And here's the problem, right? Because it's okay to critically analyze the performance of the president in that position, what they've done for the country, what they've done for and to specific audiences, groups, demographics, and it should be okay. We should be able to talk about President Barack Obama's legacy, his platform, his policies, where when we can clearly see the Latino population lobbied and got the DREAM Act. We can clearly see the LGBTQ population clearly lobby, advocate, and get marriage equality. We can see those who have, favored other things, oil industries and other special interest groups lobby the government and get some kind of positive response from the president. Now, the African American community, the Black community, has benefit from the president. We've gotten My Brother's Keeper initiative. That's an indirect benefit because that program is not funded by the government. It's called upon by corporate leaders to fund an initiative. And we can see that the monies that have come to Chicago specifically have not really been shepherded towards Black not-for-profits to help in this endeavor to, look at our young children and how they're performing in school. So we haven't really been a winner per se, and that's a global statement. And anyone out there is free to, critically analyze my statement on that, but we haven't really received a direct benefit. We've received indirect benefits. Like you said, the Affordable Care Act has, so far about 20 million folks have, been able to access and gain health insurance. That's not 21 million Americans who are African American. That's 21 million people. The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act has created jobs, but that's not specifically all the jobs for infrastructure created for Black folk. That's not just us only. And so we've received indirect benefits as a result of some of his policies. And so giving, the president a golf clap. But I think the problem here is that people in the community are very hesitant, apprehensive, afraid, and how dare you if you analyze critically the president and his performance. And I think we should be able to do that because it shouldn't matter if the president is Clinton, Bush, Obama. We should be able to say, hey, they're doing a good job, or man, they did a bad job, or they should have done this, and not, have a racial politic in that equation of conversation.
And I do agree that if he were another ethnicity, we would be angry with what he has not done for us.
Let me say one thing. Now, everybody out there in TV land knows that I'm a Haitian American, and so I advocate as much as I can for the Haitian American community. And so we're looking at a policy of immigration. That's another tier where the president has bent over backwards to allow, entry for Muslims in this country due to the Syrian refugee crisis. So we've opened up the door for that and have made a path for them to come into our country. We've also now gone to Cuba and reopened up the trade and all the economics that will soon follow into Cuba. And America has, re-begun a relationship with Cubans. But the policies that they have toward immigrants of color still is non-existent in a way that should be favorable, right? Haitians have made a significant contribution to this country. There hasn't been an immigration policy that has been, if you fall in the water, you get to come to America, such like the Cubans who have always been able to fall in the water and come all the way to Miami, and Haitians get to still go back to Haiti. We've been looking at a situation where there have been mass deportations of Dominican-born Haitians from the Dominican Republic back to Haiti. The United States has virtually said literally nothing on this subject and have, remained silent. And so when we're looking at leadership from a standpoint of what are some of the policies that you have that will impact directly in a positive way people of color, whether they be American or not, we haven't really seen that. And I think, again, we should be able to point that out and say we could have done better.
Let's talk about our issue on the state level.
Mm-hmm.
Illinois,
let's bring it on home,
is probably one of the worst, if not the worst states total out of the 50 to live in right now as far as financially. We don't have a budget. Mm-hmm. We're operating without a budget. We have social agencies and mental health facilities that are shuttering their doors. And we have the governor, the House Speaker, and all this and that just down there just wrangling all the time. But they're still getting paid. Except for the governor, because he says he's not getting paid. He doesn't need to get paid. Right. But when Rauner came on the scene, and I will give him this credit, he told us up front what he was about. And I don't know if people didn't believe him, mm-hmm. or, thought that Pat Quinn was going to just, like the phoenix rise from the ashes. I don't know what people were thinking, but he said up front, basically, his agenda is to be a union buster and to deal on a quote unquote entrepreneur / business type level with people that are rich. That is his genre. Those are his people.
Right. It's not a surprise. He said exactly what he was going to do. He's doing it. And so why are we in this situation today is beyond me.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't just me.
But here's what you said that was interesting. Okay, in the beginning, you said, on one hand, you got to respect what he's saying. And I think that we've been fooled for many, many decades of hearing one thing out of the Democrats' mouths in politics, Democrats and Republicans, but we've heard one thing and we've gotten something else, and we have still been supportive. Where now in the year of outsider, the year of change, the year of the anti-establishment, we are actually digging when the people say what they mean, and we respect when people come up with a firm stance about, I don't like blue pens. We're gonna get rid of all the blue pens, and we're like, you know what? I gotta respect that because I don't like blue pens. And so, like in the age of Trump, in the age of Rauner, coincidentally, these guys are Republicans, and they are actually coming in here and they're quote unquote meaning business, talking tough, tough acting, tenactin. But I think on some level we respect that. We want people to say what they mean and actually try to do what they say. And so where we're looking at the situation, and you brought it up very astutely, Rhea, about the state's crisis. I cannot be mad at Rauner because I know the General Assembly is constitutionally required to present a budget that is balanced. They did not do that. They tried to pass a budget that was $4 billion short. They gave it to the governor. The governor said, I'm not signing that stuff. And he sent it back. Everybody got mad and made this a partisan issue. Republican, Rauner, he ain't doing his job. He could have did all these kind of other kind of like, no, that's not his job. His job is to pass a balanced budget.
Your job is to give him a balanced
your job is to give him one. And they didn't do that. And oh, by the way, we have a democratically supermajority controlled General Assembly that promises and has said many times that, they are on our side as Black folk in this, community of Illinois. And all of our not-for-profits are suffering. All of our social service organizations and agencies aren't getting money. And that has had a trickle-down effect on the people in our west and south side neighborhoods in Chicago, let alone Cairo, let alone Alton, let alone, Kankakee and Bradley and Peatone. Wherever we live, we are all hurting as a state. But, we know when we all hurt, Black folk hurt more disproportionately.
When people have a cough, everyone else, we have pneumonia.
So exactly. And I can't get mad at Ronald for that. Not ex-governor, he should be leading, but we have been convinced and told, and we still have our Pampers on when it comes to Democrats, and they've told us, hey, don't worry, we got the super majority, we can override the veto,
and we're still sitting here
sitting with no money.
We were speaking about unintended consequences. What is one of the biggest unintended consequences you think you've seen in this season?
Well, I tell you, there's a couple. It's a couple, and you all know I ran for Congress, and I ran in the Democratic primary of the 1st Congressional District, and I came in third. I did come in second in Will County, and also came in second in suburban Cook. And so I'm very happy with those results. Got 16,366 votes. Overall, my first time basically all the way to the finish line. And so I'm very proud of my accomplishments and the numbers that I've gained. And so I could look to the future and understand where my numbers are. And so what I've been surprised is while I was the only one campaigning and talking about the issues that I believe matter to the people of the 1st Congressional District, which is jobs, future, a better economy. We're talking about, uniting the district and bringing the jobs to people in the West, in the South Side of Chicago, to, labor that exists in the Southland. It is interesting now to see our congressman who won in a landslide now start to talk about economic development. So that's one thing that I'm, surprised about, because,
that wasn't a conversation he had in a very long time.
In years prior.
Yes.
And also, I mentioned this earlier in the beginning of our conversation, but the Chicago State University crisis, and the Laquan McDonald crisis, and the Rekia Boyd crisis, and all these things that have happened to our community has really produced a new group of young leaders who I'm extremely proud of, that we've seen march, we've seen them rally, we've seen them
challenge the
establishment. And we're talking about guys like Charles Preston at Chicago State. We're talking about Will Calloway. We're talking about Willie Preston. All these young cats. Paris, I forget her last name. I think it's Paris Ebony at Chicago State. We're talking about a lot of young people who have stepped up into this gap that's been a void for a long time, because a lot of us have been, co-opted with government jobs. And so, a lot of us have been afraid to use our voice. And so we don't understand still the power of the Black community and the power that we have. But these young guys, they've looked at that and said, we're going to break that fourth dimension and go through that wall anyway. And I'm so happy to see that that's another powerful unintended result of all the things that have happened in the last year and a half. And so I'm very happy to see that. I think on the horizon, Rhea, we have a new generation of leaders that you need to get on this show and talk to them about, and see what they have to say further about what goes on in the city.
Before we go off the air, I want us to talk about one small last thing. Now that, as Mama said, now that the sheets are off the bed and we're looking at the dirty mattress, what do we as Black people need to do in dealing with our elected leadership to get what we ask for?
Like you said earlier, we have about 3 more years before we have another election in the city council. We have a couple years before we have another election in the state house with certain seats. Much has been discussed about what is the Black agenda? What is the Black agenda? Certainly the Black agenda mirrors what Americans want. We want jobs. We want
a decent school system.
We want an improved school system. Personally, this charter versus public is getting out of hand. We just, in Chicago, we don't have it. We need jobs that are sustainable. We don't need our people who are coming back home, who are, ex-offenders and people coming back to our zip codes and our neighborhoods. We don't need those guys, only being afforded the opportunity to get on the back of a truck and do some clean slate, when they need sustainable opportunities that will actually improve their quality of life, raise them out of poverty, and not have them become frustrated with $10 an hour job and get back into a life of crime where they become a terror in our neighborhoods and, put good Black folk, at risk. And, we are scared of each other. And so we can't have that. We got to change that dynamic as well. And so what is the Black agenda? I think the Black agenda is the American agenda. We need jobs. We need a better improved quality of life. We need better and fairer, equitable housing. We need, to improve the quality of life, and we need sustainable economic and sustainable jobs. We can't keep doing spot development where we get, a business that comes into our neighborhood who really doesn't have, an impact that they are planning to make in the neighborhood for folks in the neighborhood. And so that's what we need, Rhea. We need that. And so we've got to push all of our legislative leaders at all levels to say, this is the agenda that we want, and you need to do something about it today. And we cannot, accept we'll get to that later response. We've got to do it right now. The time is now for us to strike. I think the people have spoken, and people who have been elected to office better start listening. Otherwise, I think we have the power of the voting to get new leaders. And that's why I think where we're headed, new leadership.
What I'm asking people to do, wherever you are, hold your elected officials accountable. Find out what legislation they're promoting, what legislation they're voting against, and why. If it's contrary to your interests, you need to let that person know, and you need to let them know if there's enough of us, we're going to vote you out of office.
That's right. Hold them accountable.
Everyone. Well, Patrick, Brutus, thank you so much. I love having you on the show.
Thanks for having me back, Rhea.
We're going to have another conversation as this gets a little closer to the new election. And with that, we are off the air from the Straight No Chaser show on intellectualradio.com and iHeartRadio station. As always, dedicate yourselves to the truth, no matter the cost. Be safe, everyone. Have a peaceful evening.
With no chaser, it gives the people a voice, empowers you with a choice. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. She provides a platform of growth and gives a dying people hope. She gives you straight talk, no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser. Straight talk with no chaser.